Welcome to In the Green Chair, an interview series by Relay Education. In each episode, we sit down with a professional who's working the green economy to learn about their story. I'm your host, Ade, and today I'm joined with my co-host, Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Ade.
Throughout the series, you'll hear from professionals across a wide range of fields and sectors who all work in what we consider to be a green-collar career. Today's guest in the green chair is Lindsey Swartzman. She is the Business Development Manager at Terracycle. Hi, Lindsey. Welcome to the green chair.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So I want to kind of go into your work and the work that you do. Obviously, the pandemic has modified the way we work right now. What would a typical day at work be for you?
I'd say there's no such thing as a typical day, which is personally what I love about my job. Every day is different. I'm very fortunate as the manager of business development for Canada that I get to talk to the most wonderful people. I talk to, the number one companies in the world, to startups and people who are just launching products to figure out how can we make their products recyclable. And we believe we can recycle anything because waste is a human construct. In nature, there's no such thing as waste. So I spend my days working with these brands to figure out how we can do this. And so in many ways, I've been very fortunate that COVID hasn't actually changed the way I work as much. If anything, I get to see people's faces a little bit more because people are less shy to turn on their camera.
It almost sounds like a consulting job because you're giving advice to these giant companies and sharing, Terracycle's ideas and methods with them. Every client that you have has different needs and different desires. Each approach would be a little bit different too.
And what I love to do, and one of my favorite parts of my job, is looking at the programs that we have live and showing consumers and showing brands, how each program looks so different and is in that brand's look and feel.
So I want to ask you a little bit about the history of Terracycle. What does the organization do?
Absolutely. So Terracycle has been around for almost 20 years now. We were founded by Tom Zaki, who started Terracycle in his dorm room at Princeton, where him and his friends were fertilizing their plants with worm poop. And they decided to bottle that worm poop into Coca-Cola bottles. And so that was where we started. We really started as, a fertilizer and packaging company. But since then, in the almost 20 years since Tom started, we really revolutionized into a waste management company and driving value back to our partners in over 20 different countries. So primarily we're focused on eliminating the idea of waste. How do we recycle products that are not typically recyclable, that are not accepted in your curbside bin? But that's only one part of what we do. We also work with partners to look at what's going into their products in our stored materials division. So we worked with Head and Shoulders to create the first shampoo bottle actually made out of beach plastic. And then our third division, which it's really exciting that we're actually talking today, since this is a Canadian podcast, is our Loop division. So Loop, we're designing out of disposability altogether. And with Loop today, we actually just announced our partnership with Tim Hortons, who will be rolling out cups and packaging that are reusable in their stores. And it will be piloted in, early 2021. And then Loop is also going live with Loblaws as our first official retail partner in February 2021 as well.
When I think about zero waste and how the movement is growing, especially with young people, I always wonder, that's great that people are making better choices, but number one, what do we do with the waste that already exists? And it seems like Terracycle is working on that.
Absolutely. And I think Terracycle, we really believe in having a portfolio of solutions. There's a reason why, going back to, elementary school, there's reduce, reuse, recycle. There's multiple ways that we can make an impact on our environment when it comes to waste. The side of business I focus on is the recycling. How do we take a company's package as it is today and make it recyclable? How do we offer programs to consumers in a way that's simple and easy, that, doesn't take time?
What are those new creative ways of recycling? What does it get turned into?
So first, it's how do we break it into its parts? And then let's find that end of life solution. It all comes down to economics. The reason why you can put an aluminum can in your curbside recycling bin is because your municipal recycler, so for me in Toronto, the city of Toronto, can process it and sell it for a profit. It makes economic sense. So something like, a coffee capsule, since we're working from home, I actually do have some props here. This is actually an example of what, I'll do it like how the influencers do. What a coffee capsule in that raw pelletized form looks like. And then once it's in this new material, it could be reintroduced into a supply chain, and it could be looped around and into the production of new products.
Terracycle is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this. You are like planet Earth's consultant on recycling.
We've been called the Google of garbage before.
Yeah, it's great to hear all the positive work that Terracycle is doing. I'd like to know a little bit more about you, though. Has there been any influences in your life that have kind of directed you towards a job in sustainability?
So it's actually really interesting. If you had told me, 2 years ago that I'd be sitting here today talking about Terracycle, I probably wouldn't have believed you. I actually studied political science. My degrees in poli-sci and refugee and migration studies. I studied at York. I worked heavily in research. And part of my degree in research in refugees and migration studies was coming up with this the topic of climate refugees. And that's something that really sparked my interest because I'd always cared about the environment and climate change. I was part of my recycling club at my elementary school in grade 2 and won a nice award for that. So always cared and always wanted to do the right thing. I was trying to be reusable, trying to, recycle, but wasn't my passion. But when I was introduced to this idea of climate change refugees and that, millions and millions of people are going to be displaced because of climate change. And this isn't something that's, just an abstract thought that's going to be, maybe 100 years from now. This is happening now. There's plenty of, small islands that because of the rising seawaters are inhabitable, or because of heat, places are not going to be habitable. And my question was simply, where are these people going? Climate change refugees are not under the Geneva Convention and the, concept and the definition of a refugee. And so that really got me interested into how do we prevent this crisis from happening? As much as I loved working in research, and I still spend a lot of my time researching different topics, I knew that I wanted to make a difference. I also always knew that I wouldn't be able to, just work at, a 9-to-5 job and sitting in my little cubicle. I really needed to do something that I was passionate about. When I found Terracycle, who I was familiar with already through the Nespresso recycling program, I thought that would be a great fit for me.
It's really interesting it's definitely not a direct route, but there's all those connections, right? It still does all connect together at the end of the day.
And, other than working in research, I've had a very, circuitous route to Terracycle. I also worked in outdoor education. I was an instructor with Outward Bound, worked with at-risk youth in other wilderness outdoor education programs. So I've spent a lot of times outdoors too. And I've noticed the shifts in my, own experience outside, seeing more and more garbage and waste wash up on our shores here in Ontario, to just the heat waves in the summer.
I've heard a lot recently about the circular economy. And I assume that Terracycle, especially with Loop, it's kind of built into the name of the company, right? So
Yes.
what exactly is this circular economy, and where do you think there are opportunities for people to find employment?
Yeah, so I think Loop is a great example of, how we are disrupting the linear system we've had thus far to create that circular environment. How we can take a product like Clorox wipes, the same ones that you would buy at your Shoppers Drug Mart, any, grocery store, but it's in this beautiful reusable container that is designed to go through a minimum of, 100 reuse cycles. And so in the circular economy, we need to design ourselves out of disposability into products like these. And so in terms of new green jobs, I think there's a huge opportunity for product designers and engineers and those in the R&D space to really look at what's going into a product. Because when you're somebody who's designing something like these new Clorox wipes, there's a huge area for innovation. It's hard to innovate with a pouch. A pouch is just getting lighter and lighter. But something like the Clorox wipes or Haagen-Dazs, we created a stainless steel ice cream container because, I'm not sure, but where do you guys think the most commonplace to eat ice cream is?
I'm going to say on your couch watching Netflix.
I'm going to say in your bed.
You are right with the bed. And so we created this stainless steel ice cream container that keeps the ice cream colder for longer, and it melts from the top down versus inside out. So I think that, to the question of, with the circular economy, where will jobs be? I think R&D and, looking at products and how do we design ourselves out of disposability, but in a way that makes sense with the system that taps into consumer behavior. We know that people like disposability. So how do we create something that is reusable, that is durable, but isn't complicated?
It's great to hear that there's still those design jobs available, and just with that different mindset, thinking of circles instead of straight lines, right?
Something that younger people could think about right now when they think about our future is being an inventor is actually not an outdated thing to be. That's going to be a career, and that's actually needed. And that requires technical skills, but also lots of creativity because you're imagining a future we've never had before.
And we have to figure out a way that everybody's needs can get met,
With it just coincidentally being Waste Reduction Week, I have kind of a waste-related question.
Absolutely.
Are there any like common misconceptions people have about their municipal recycling programs?
Yes. So one of the number one misconceptions is that anything that has the recycling symbol on the bottom with a number in it is curbside recycle, and that is simply not the case. I think that gets to, a really big piece and something that I'm really passionate about, which is we need to be having conversations, cross industries with different leaders to figure out how do we put systems in place that make sense. And so the challenge with the recycling system is there's only a few materials that are commonly curbside recyclable, and that municipal divide is really confusing for people. The fact that one of my colleagues who lives in Mississauga can recycle certain products that I can't in Toronto and vice versa. This is why such a small percentage of our recycling actually gets processed. And so I'd say that is probably the number one misconception. And then also what we're seeing nowadays is the rise in bioplastics. So it's, this product is compostable. This is made out of, bioplastic material. Those products cannot go in your recycling bin. They also cannot go into your compost bin. They actually are not recyclable or compostable. That's, something my CEO, Tom Zaki, who's a prolific author, somewhere in his free time, which I don't understand how he does, is he has a number of books and he actually writes about this. The most recent one is The Future of Packaging.
I learned that recently, that these plastic doggy poop bags, which are made of whatever, plastic that they say can biodegrade. But I realized, or I did learn that, you can't actually, you have to still throw them out in the garbage, right? Do you think that they're made with that ill intention in mind, or are they actually made to try to help eliminate waste?
I think there's a disconnect. I think that this is the idea of people want to do the right thing. The system is just broken. When we think about compost, for example, so a product that's compostable, there's tons of, for example, compostable coffee capsules. I don't believe that the inventors of these materials actually did the research to connect downstream and talk to a composter and say, hey, can this be used in your compost lot? And the answer is no. And so with shifting towards bio cups and cell phone cases and everything under the sun, it actually just gets sorted out and sent to landfill. I think that everybody has the best intentions. Everybody wants to do good. We just need to have more communication between the folks and the scientists who are creating these packaging in labs to the systems that are in place.
I guess you can't really blame the designers of this as well, because as you mentioned before, every municipality has its own rules and what they can and can't recycle. Why can't you just have the same recycling program all across, maybe Canada's too big, but even just say all across Ontario?
I wish I had an answer to that, because I think that would be a great solve. But at the end of the day, recycling is an industry, it's a business. We're seeing municipalities actually shut down their recycling programs, not build them up. City of Philadelphia, for example, and this is happening here in Canada too, but they used to get paid for their recycling, and now they pay almost $100 a ton to get rid of the recycled material.
So it sounds to me like there needs to be an education, because a lot of us just don't know where to put our stuff when we're done with it. There needs to be some type of maybe international standard. And in terms of the biodegradable stuff, so if something is truly compostable where you could just throw it in the compost bin, if there was some type of, how like when makeup is cruelty free, there's a little rabbit on there, right? So for sure. And it also seems like there needs to be collaboration. I was thinking about the city of Philadelphia. How many fashion designers are making things out of recycled materials? And if they could work with the city to source that,
exactly.
Right?
There's so many opportunities for collaboration. I think that's the key. The scientists who created recycle-ready packaging had the best intentions in mind, but we also need to make sure that the end user and then the infrastructure and the system in place is there to support it. And I think that is, in my own personal definition, the circular economy.
So think about the younger version of you that was a budding environmentalist. Grade 12, you're not sure what you want to study or if you want to take a year off and volunteer. What's some advice that you would give to people at that time in their life in regards to what they can do if they want to contribute to fighting climate change and reducing waste?
First of all, a huge supporter of taking time off. If you are able to take, a gap year between high school and university, I recommend doing so. Do something that is meaningful to you. Volunteer with different organizations. Maybe you can actually which is, working on organic farms, getting yourself exposed. And I think that's also then, even if you don't take a gap year, which not everybody is in the position of privilege to be able to do that, I recommend not siloing yourself in university. You will not be doing what you thought you were going to do in university or in grade 12 when you're older. I'm just in the beginning of my career, and think about what I already said. I worked in outdoor education. I worked in research. I also worked as, the community outreach coordinator for a nonprofit, and now I work in business development. Put yourself in a position to be exposed to as many ideas and subject areas as possible, because I think that's really the key. Accept the reality of the world that we live in from a, capitalist perspective. How do we manage that with the environmental needs, with the social needs? How does it all come together? Because it's not a one size fits all strategy. And the more that you're able to educate yourself and expose yourself to ideas, the better and more effective you are as a leader and as a person in whatever field you go into.
And I want to know, where can we find you on the internet? What are some great resources for people to look into if they're struggling to recycle some of their household items?
First, you can find me on LinkedIn, Lindsey Swartzman, always there and happy to, guide people to the right resources. You can go to the Terracycle website where we have a list of our free recycling programs that you could join, send back from any location in Canada. We also have our zero waste boxes and many different, ways that you can get involved with Terracycle there. I also personally have learned a lot from following industry publications, whether that's, Canadian grocer to sustainable brands. And I would really look at, when it comes to recycling, what's accepted in your, blue bin system. Look at your local municipality's website. I know I have the City of Toronto app on my phone that can tell me what can go in the blue bin. And then if it can't go into the blue bin, where does it need to go and how I can make that happen.
Thank you, Lindsey, for sitting in the green chair with us today.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you enjoyed learning about the different paths people take to working in the green economy.
Follow us on social media at Relay Education and check out our website, relayeducation.com, to learn more.